Welcome, ladies, back to another weekly call. So, this one is about fueling your gains, maximizing the anabolic window. So, again, one of you ladies inside the program on the check in form, you wanted to know a little bit more about the anabolic window and how to utilize it. So, I thought it would be a really cool topic to talk about today. So, why does this matter? Well, the anabolic window, ideally for you, you want to tone up, lose fat, and feel strong. And you want to build lean muscle. You want to improve your energy, recovery, and your hormonal balance too. So, this generally happens through nutrition and not just through training alone. So we're going to be talking about how this all kind of fits in together for sure. But yeah, just taking it back to the anabolic window here. So what is it? Because some of you may have heard this term or have never heard of this term before. And the anabolic window refers to a short period post exercise, roughly believed to be between 30 and 90 minutes, where the body is especially receptive to nutrients, i.e., protein, for example. And muscle protein synthesis is something that is elevated after the training. And this creates that optimal opportunity to fuel your recovery and also your muscle growth. So just also a quick link towards studies though. So as I said before, roughly 30 to 90 minutes. There's newer research to say that although this, we may have believed that this window was, pretty short, it's important to note that there could be potential that it's a little bit bigger than it was. Timely protein and carb intake is still important in enhancing recovery and body composition over time. And one of the reasons why I, again, love this suggestion, and again, it really got me thinking about this as well. But again, when you're showing up to your workouts and you're like pushing yourself and you're putting in effort, I really wanted to kind of highlight the fact that sort of sometimes on occasion, whether it's because you're super busy with work or you don't think it's like important, but you end up skipping meals and maybe even like delaying food full stop after training. And it's just really important to note that this is one of the most crucial opportunities to help maximize your results. So here is a picture of what muscle protein synthesis looks like. And it's a bit of a dance, right? So this is actually an expert from my my nutrition studies that I've done. And the muscle protein synthesis, again, that could be new for you to hear that. It's the building of new muscle. And you get something else called the muscle protein breakdown, which is the degradation of muscle proteins. So we know that the muscle protein synthesis can be simulated or stimulated through diet and exercise, but there's also this breakdown that's happening. And that's ideally that's happening when you're exercising. So obviously we need to try and create that spike. And as you can kind of see here, there's obviously a bit of a dance going on with, the breakdown and the synthesis, the building up phases as well. So you can see here there's an influx of protein here on the left. You have that feeding. Perhaps this is again after your training. You get this increase of muscle protein synthesis. So the building is going up. And then obviously, once that's been done, that comes all the way down. And then you've got in the background this potter of breakdown that's just sort of occurring. Don't sound like scared or confused by this, but these are just normal bodily processes that occur. We need things to break down in order to build them back up. So your body is in repair mode after strength and resistance training. So it's really important that the right nutrients are there to help with your recovery, your lean muscle tissue, and your performance for your future sessions as well. There's no point of training super hard and then all of a sudden, you've not really fueled yourself, and maybe you've got a session the next day, and then you eat super late, and again, it could maybe possibly lead you to feeling quite sort of mentally or physically exhausted, and then you've got another training in the morning. So it's really important that we are thinking about the way that our nutrition works in terms of helping us with this activity portion of our lifestyle. So, feeding in the post exercise period is required to bring about a positive in protein balance, just as we talked, or I showed you before in that graph, the synthesis and then obviously, the breakdown occurring as well. We want to try and increase that. And it's important to note that we eat to build, not starve to shrink. So again, many women are stuck in that sort of very traditional calorie burning mindset. I worked out, so now I can like skip food, as if you are working out and it's creating some sort of disruption in your energy balance, or you've just burnt loads of calories, so you don't want to eat the calories back. It's a really negative mindset, and that's going to slow your progress down, because you want to think about the training actually being a signal for growth. And you might think, well, I'm not really interested in all these muscles. Like, why am I bothering with that? Well, it's really, really important, because we know that your ability to bank and build and grow muscle is going to help you not only when you get older, but it helps you with all your daily functions and your health as well overall. But also it's going to help you with your resting metabolism as well. So it's really important, ladies, that we are thinking about building, the muscle. If we just have that mindset of burning calories like a hamster on a wheel, just doing cardio, just starving yourself, you are going to end up looking very, very gaunt. And we want to feel strong, we want to feel energized, and we want to love life. So it's really important that we are balanced with this. And that's what this is like. This is that sort of balance that we're creating. And when we're thinking about actual fat loss, that's going to happen from NEAT, nutrition, and calorie balance, not just from exercise. You'll notice that I don't do your exercise training where you've got to burn stuff. It's again, the exercise is the stuff that shapes us. So the consequences of not eating post-workout, you're going to have poor recovery. So again, are you going to have really shit sleep? You'll have muscle breakdown. Believe it or not, the breakdown will happen, and this is called catabolism. Your body needs to have fuel from somewhere. Unfortunately, it won't just pick it from your fat stores. It will head straight to your muscle stores. So it's really important that we are feeding. That's why there's just such this consensus or drive around protein and muscle, because we are trying to preserve that tissue, and we don't want this catabolic effect to happen. So again, increased fatigue, poor sleep, I did mention that, and hormonal stress as well. So your hormonals are having their own dance going on. And then again, if you're not really eating, you're just going to feel exhausted. You're going to have that slump. You need energy. And especially if you might think, oh, well, hey, I've got a job that requires me to be at the desk long hours. This doesn't really require loads of energy. Yes, it does. It requires lots of mental energy as well. So it's really important. And then also, if you're not eating enough, you'll struggle with your sleep as well. So it's really important that we really are creating this balance. And so it's fuel the body to perform better and build muscle, because it's the muscle that's changing your physique. So what should you eat after training? So we could kind of look at sort of, a key formula of, 20 to 30 grams of protein. Again, let's say you're not heading straight into a meal, or there might be more of a snack type scenario here. But again, you've got shakes that you can have. So you can have a protein shake. You can add some carbs to the protein shake. The carbs can come in the way of banana, believe it or not. Perhaps maybe again, other things to make it taste nice, whether, you've got dates in there or blueberries or, the milk that you choose to use, Greek yogurt in there. Other things that you can do are just literally have like protein with some carbs. So, for example, you might have some tempeh and you might decide to have the tempeh. It might be seasoned tempeh, and you might put it in on toast or something. There's so many different ways of having a post workout meal, but ideally it's the carbs and the protein that are going to work really well together. And this is where you can ideally save your fats for later on in the day or around in the other meals. So why am I talking to you about protein and carbs? Well, protein is going to provide you with amino acids to build muscle, especially leucine. Now, we haven't really talked about leucine in this conversation or this call today. Leucine is really key amino acid and really important when it comes to helping that sort of muscle protein synthesis occur as well. So with leucine, again, there are ways that we can kind of add this in. And again, if you're like more veggie or vegan, it might be something that we kind of explore adding towards things like, your protein shake or mixing it in with some yogurt or something, thereabouts. But again, that's really diving in when we're thinking about the sort of hardcore muscle building stuff that we start talking about that sort of thing. The carbs are there that they're going to help replenish your glycogen stores. They will actually lower your cortisol and they'll aid in recovery. Carbs are not the devil. The only reason why carbs, and I'll repeat this, why carbs are sort of seen as the devil is because they carry water. Water equals weight. Is there anything wrong with water? No. Our bodies are made of it. It's important. It's at a cellular level that we are pulling in water into the muscle tissues as well. So it's just don't be scared. Okay. So looking at some research here as well. So again, protein and carbs after training can help increase the muscle protein synthesis more than just protein alone. So let's kind of think about what the optimal message is here. So based on all the data and after 2 to 3 meals a day, an increased meal frequency is unlikely to increase muscle gain if total protein remains consistent. So, not to confuse you with that statement, but that's basically just to say that sometimes we might think about like meal timings and how to spread out the protein and how to distribute it. Well, this key study and this sort of research here did actually find out that, again, whether you're having 5 meals and dividing that into 30 grams of protein per meal, or whether you're having 3 meals and dividing that into 50 grams of protein, both equal of 150 grams here, that's probably not going to make any difference to your muscle gain. It's likely going to be exactly the same. So all of this stuff about, meal frequency, meal time, all of those things really, ideally, they depend on your lifestyle and the total picture. There's no point of trying to eat like an absolute sort of gym bro or bodybuilder. Even then, as the data suggests, it's the same. So it's not going to make a huge difference. Just stick to what feels right for you and what you can adhere to. We're all going to have various demands in terms of energy requirements over the course of the day. Some of us literally cannot operate without having some fuel in us first thing in the morning. So again, if you are breaking this down and having smaller, larger meals, and you're having 2 to 3 meals a day, and spreading it out further or thin, that's not going to help you if you can't stick to it. And similarly, maybe you don't have the capacity or the ability to take 5 meal times. Imagine that breaking up and having can you take 5 breaks a day to go and have a meal and cook and prep? Or are you going to do it all in advance? So you really this has to make sense to your lifestyle. So another thing, don't obsess about the daily calories as such. They are obviously very important, but I want you to kind of have the mindset of the overall week. So your body responds to a weekly calorie balance and not just the daily fluctuations. And so this is where we talk about the sort of untracked or the potential overeating that happens at the weekends. They can wipe out a weekday deficit. So you could say to me, for example, here, let's say we've applied a 400 calorie deficit to you, and with that, you've lost 2,000 calories over the course of a week. However, or over the course of the weekdays. However, at the weekend, you end up having 2 days where you kind of increase or go overboard by 1,000 calories. Well, what you've done then is you've completely taken that out of the equation. It's yeah, your net result, you end up in maintenance or worse still, even a gain, right? So that's why it's really important for us to track. And similarly, on the other token, you could say that you're not actually having, you're untracked at the weekend. You might not be satisfying your protein needs or maybe even your calorie intake. So it works in both ways. Everything isn't just about overeating. There could be some undereating happening as well. So really, we just need to be mindful of flexibility and not careless. So again, this is where we can start, using our strategies of things like our calorie banking. Many of us ladies did that over sort of Christmas, for example, especially when there was a frequency of having to go out more. And then also having more protein focused meals when you do go out and planning the alcohol and snacks ahead as well. Neat is queen. So, what is neat? I mentioned neat at the beginning. I mentioned neat quite a lot as well. So, if you are listening back, have a think about what neat is. Neat is your non exercise activity thermogenesis. It's so much easier just saying neat. Up your neat. How's your neat? Is your neat decreased? Do we need to increase your neat? Your neat is basically stuff like the walking, the cleaning, the fidgeting, the standing, the walking to go and get a coffee. It's just the stuff that we just do, right? And the fidgeting is literally as simple as when you, for example, when you are on a work call or even potentially me here talking to you, if I'm full of energy and I know that I'm getting enough calories in and perhaps maybe I'm working in a deficit, but it's not massive. I may have, the potential or the energy to kind of fidget. As soon as things go down in energy intake, the expenditure often goes down with it. Your body is just clever at going, oh, we need to preserve and conserve energy. I'm not going to move as much. So that's your neat. So your neat becomes decreased. Okay. And that's quite often where people might say, oh, I'm starting to eat less, but I'm struggling. And well, you're probably in such a deficit that you're actually not able to do all of these normal things. Okay, so neat is, and the reason why I mentioned neat is as a reminder, it's the biggest driver of a calorie burn. Okay, because obviously that's often what we are thinking about is the burning of the calories, especially in that traditional sense of how we've been spoken to, ladies, over the last couple of decades. I know things are changing now, but fat loss happens more from the neat and the nutrition than your actual 45-minute gym session or exercise class or home training. This is the stuff that shapes us. The stuff that gets the fat loss is all from the neat and the nutrition, and that's why it's get your step count up, etc. So yes, you can't out train a low step count or a high weekend intake, just to kind of note there. So when we're thinking about, we're taking you back into the science again. Hopefully I didn't lose you before, but had it on the slides, actually just a few slides, or actually quite near the beginning, but the refractory period and the muscle protein synthesis. Okay. So just to kind of tell you here that in simple terms, after a workout, your muscle protein synthesis spikes. So when we are having a look at that dance of the waves, and we've got the small waves in between, which is the breakdown, we've got the up of the spike as well, which is the muscle protein synthesis. So after your workout, that muscle protein synthesis spikes, and this is your anabolic phase. Catabolic is the breakdown. So your anabolic phase is the building phase. So eventually, the muscle protein synthesis naturally declines. That's supposed to happen. It needs to happen. This is called a refractory period. Okay. So you've got the dance, it's gone up. You can't just keep going up and up and up. So here we go. You can't constantly spike muscle protein synthesis and think, yeah, I just need to keep going. Your body actually needs time, and your digestive system, your body needs time to rest, digest, and then work on that rebuild. So if it's going up, it needs to come down in order to come back up again. So taking it back to, again, some more stuff. So eating frequent protein feedings of about 30 to 45 grams every 3 to 4 hours. Again, it just depends, doesn't it? I did think about this, and again, if you're having 5 intervals of meals, then maybe that makes more sense. But let's just say 30 to 45 grams 3 times a day. Again, depending on your total intake, or we could say every 3 to 4 hours, maybe even hitting that sort of more 20 to 30 grams if you're able to eat more frequently. Again, either or, these are going to be beneficial for women, especially us women that are looking to build muscle, maintain lean mass, and particularly if we are active and training regularly. It's really important. This is going to help maximize the protein synthesis response across the day, whilst also recovering or supporting your recovery and hormonal regulation. So for us women over 30, aiming for the higher end of this range can be especially helpful due to age-related changes in muscle protein turnover and the anabolic resistance. Loads of confusing words. Hopefully it's all making sense, right? Again, if not, then it's something that we can kind of come back to and again revisit as well. So where are we? Okay, so progressive overload. Progressive overload and fuel is going to equal results. So our training must include progressive overload to keep stimulating adaptation. Now, this means either increasing the weights, the reps, or intensity over time. But without the fuel, the body cannot adapt. So again, it's all things balanced here. So yeah, again, when we're thinking about progressive overload, let's say, for example, you don't do that. You work out from home and you have a set of 2 kilo dumbbells and a 10 kilo dumbbell, and that's it. And you make do with that. At some point, you're going to outgrow those 2 kilos, especially if you've been using those for your upper body. And at some point, you're going to outgrow the 10 kilos, especially if you do that for your lower body. Now, you can add intensity of things like reps, but what do you do once you get to 10 reps or 15 reps or 20? You just start becoming or falling into this sort of very burny cycle, and it actually becomes more like cardio as opposed to muscle and strength building. Now, other things that you can do is increasing the intensity. We can look at different things like tempo. So tempo, we can try and create that more slower feeling muscle burn, sort of really working through the phases of the movement pattern to try and really, again, we can talk about this in some more detail, but, various different phases of, a contraction of a muscle, for example, the lengthening phase and the contracting phase as well. So just the way that we move within that can create difference in intensity. Going really fast and super, super fast is only going to make it feel like more like cardio. So it's really important that you are You are very specific with this. And yeah, it goes without saying, without fuel, your body cannot adapt. So none of this sort of starving for like hours on end afterwards because you believe it's going to help your burn. No, you're just going to burn into muscle. So yeah, especially for us women in our 30s, 40s and beyond, muscle gets harder because of our age and because of hormonal changes. So it's really important that adequate protein recovery and intensity are essential for visible changes. So here are some points to kind of note. Don't skip a meal or shake post workout. And again, in an ideal scenario, both the protein and carbs within the 90 minutes of training. And it's not to say that if you don't get that within 90 minutes, you're going to ruin all your progress. Just take it with a pinch of salt. Just make sure that you are fueling yourself, soon after. Um, I have experienced it on a few occasions where I've had a really intense training session. I've had a million things to do, and it's completely slipped my mind that I needed to eat. So it's been something as simple as jumping in the shower, getting dressed, and then just like having to dash out and go somewhere, and actually then realizing, oh crap, I've forgotten to eat. And in that scenario, I get this sort of almost like an ache. I literally feel like an ache. Again, is that in my mind? But certainly, maybe I'll get a headache, or again, maybe it might be that I start feeling really fatigued or something. So you'll notice when that's happened. This is where reminders are really helpful as well. So making sure that things are plugged into your Google Calendar. You want to hit your daily protein target. So I'll always say that the minimum that us ladies should be aiming for is 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, that might sound like an awful lot, but that is the sort of lower end target. Now, again, I've sort of mentioned this before, but we are thinking about sort of government recommendations. These are for people that don't exercise. It's about zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. But we're working with muscle here. We are trying to build and retain lean muscle mass. So it's really important that we are looking at hitting our protein targets. And you've all got specific protein targets to hit. Sometimes I'm a little bit, easier on you in terms of it might be a little bit lower than the 1.6 grams because sometimes it just might feel like bucket loads. It's better that we try and aim for consistency. And then as our body weight drops, it will naturally be an easier target to hit. So track consistently throughout the week and not just the weekdays, as I've explained. Keep your steps up and actually have a non-negotiable target for your low days. So let's say, for example, you try and average 8K steps a day. Let's say you're like, yeah, I want to get 8K steps a day. On a low day, you might say to yourself, I am not going to let myself go any lower than 5K. And in an ideal scenario, you would try and make up those extra steps. On another day, you might push the 8K steps up to sort of 9 or 10 on the other days where you can. But again, just really just ensuring that you're not neglecting that. And it's interesting because quite often, you'll feel like you're ticking all the boxes. And then when I have a look at your step count, and you go, well, I've not made any progress. We have a look at your step count, and it's shockingly low, and it's almost halved from the week before. So just really bear in mind. And again, these are things that you can look at in your dashboard and also on your phones. Phones are so clever. You can have a look at weekly averages and stuff as well on there. Focus on increasing your training intensity or the reps or the weights weekly or even on a 4 weekly cycle. So I think the 4 weekly cycle is a really good way of kind of understanding how to apply progressive overloading and get stronger as well. And don't fear rest or higher food days as well, because they can actually aid recovery. So again, if you are tracking really well, this is where we can start exploring things like maintenance days or even refeeds. These can be really helpful around our menstrual cycle if we know that typically our demands are higher around then, or they could also serve in terms of helping any negative metabolic adaptations. So anything that's kind of affecting your metabolism quite a bit from from eating so low consistently. So if you are in a deficit for a really long time and you know that you're adhering to it because you are consistently tracking and you're doing all the stuff, at some point there could be some metabolic adaptation. And then this is obviously where we would do something like, put a refeed in, etc. And these can be really helpful because we can kind of plan these around social events or birthdays or holidays, etc. But yeah, ultimately, if you want to look toned, feel energized, and build confidence through your body, this is your formula. And it's not about punishment or starving post workout. It's about fueling your body so that it can build. You don't need to train harder. You need to recover smarter and fuel with intention and stay consistent. That is where the progress happens. So your workouts aren't all about sort of burning out. That's not what we're trying to do. And often you won't always sweat. Again, sometimes you will and sometimes you won't. Again, that just really a lot of the time depends on, again, the time of the month, or maybe even how you operate and your body operates in general, in response to movement. Again, seasons as well. You could feel a bit warmer when you're training in the summer. So again, it's just those sorts of things to kind of like bear in mind. And then yeah, just not going like crazy with like doing things super fast and making your workout feel more like a cardio session as opposed to an intentional training session where we are focusing on that building. But yeah, hopefully this has helped. And ladies, please drop in your questions to me. Make sure you message me at the end of watching this video so that I know that you've kind of ticked it off. And yeah, see you next time.